Well, hello there. My name is Dr. Dan Cunningham with Mother Goose Chiropractic. And if you are watching this webinar or you registered for this series, you might know a child that is struggling with ear infections. Perhaps it's your child. So this is part of a series that we are doing in collaboration with the National Family Wellness Alliance. And Mother Goose Chiropractic, myself, Dr. Dane Cunningham, and my wife, Dr. Carrie Cunningham. We specialize in pediatrics and pregnancy. So tonight, we want to give a great overview of the topic of ear infections, and really look at some of the root causes, look at what's contributing to those types of issues, because we have heard the story hundreds of times from parents who come to us that are struggling, that are frustrated, that are doubting, like, what else could I possibly be doing to help my child? And we understand, the late night ER visits and the warm washcloths and the frantic Googling and searching and looking to see, what can I do to help my child? So I'm here at Mother Goose Chiropractic. We are a pediatric office, and that is of utmost importance to us. So we see babies, toddlers, children, young adults, and full families. But specifically, these ear infections, it's a problem that can start early on in a child's life. And really the issue is that we know that when you have a chronic health issue early on, that can affect and influence the health of a child or an individual later on, because you're sort of setting that tone for how the body is going to fight infection, how the immune system is going to develop. So we want to really kind of challenge the status quo and say, okay, maybe you have tried the baby Tylenol or the antibiotics, and maybe multiple rounds, and you're at wit's end, and that those things aren't working. So we want to take a big picture look and say, okay, this is what's going on, this is what causes the problem, and look at some unique solutions, I should say, and also talk a little bit about how pediatric chiropractic fits in with the ENT system, drainage, neurological control, and also how chiropractic and immunity, the immune system, in a growing and developing child, because we know that in a child, that window, those first 3 years, it's a critical time for brain development, for immune development, and you don't want to have to worry about, okay, they're chronically, battling these ear infections. Why are they always sick? Because then there's that worry about, okay, is that going to affect other developmental delays? Is that going to affect speech? Is that going to affect motor, balance, equilibrium? And then there are consequences and effects for the immune system down the road. So that's really what we want to take a look at here in our ear infections. And again, this is in collaboration with the National Family Wellness Alliance. Super excited if you're on with us tonight. Dr. Dane Cunningham, Mother Goose Chiropractic. So in this office, again, here at Mother Goose Chiropractic, we've seen it all. I've seen children that have had 6, 7, 8 ear infections. We're talking, up to a dozen rounds of antibiotics in the first couple of years of life. And again, mom and dad, you guys know in your gut, right? And even your pediatrician might have looked at you on, the third or fourth round of drugs to say, okay, these things have consequences. We understand that antibiotics, if there's an infection, praise God, that's a life-saving intervention. That's really, really important. You don't want to mess around with an infection, especially in a young child. But we also know that, antibiotics, they affect the microbiome. They affect the good bacteria in the gut, and that changes, and that can have lifelong consequences for how the good bacteria develop in the gut of a child, and really setting the stage for a stressed and overwhelmed immune system when a child experiences infections and has to go on antibiotics early on in life. And there's two types of ear infections when it comes to this stuff with kiddos, guys. There's otitis media, which is just media, think middle. There's a middle ear infection. And then there's also otitis externa, which is also commonly referred to as swimmer's ear. So we also see children, they get a little bit older and they want to, do extracurriculars and fun things and play dates. And here in sunny Southwest Florida, right, you got the beach and the pool, and kids love to go swimming. So that's another big sticking point of frustration for some moms and kiddos when they come in. They say, every time after they go swimming, they complain about their ears afterwards. So those are the two types of ear infections: otitis media, middle ear; otitis externa, or the external part of the ear canal, also commonly referred to as swimmer's ear. So here's another really, really important concept, guys. 80% of ear infections are viral in nature, right? So can antibiotics fix a virus? No. Now, the only way the body has to fight a virus, right? The body and the immune system has to fight a virus with a fever or, that natural immunity. Most ear infections aren't bacterial. If they linger, if they fester, and we keep a close eye on children as we take care of them, that's a good time to check in and have a consult with your pediatrician for sure. But about, again, 80% are viral in nature. 86%, according to the research, are self-resolving. So that's another tough thing too, is that when you're looking for answers and you've got to take time off of work and you go to your pediatrician and they don't give you anything, you're like, well, what? Give me something. We work with a lot of pediatricians here in Southwest Florida, and we work back and forth co-managing these cases and, refer back and forth when appropriate. But, that's a tough thing too, that we have to change our mindset a little bit as parents, that, okay, most of these are viral and most are self-resolving. We need to kind of challenge ourselves a little bit and trust, the healing ability of the body. That's another really key fundamental belief here at our office, which, again, don't get me wrong, that's tough. It's difficult when you're, making a midnight run to an ER, or your child can't sleep and you have to get to bed and they have to get to bed and you've got work the next day or school the next day. That we totally get. We totally understand as well. It's, I've been there as a child. 50% present with fever, right? So fever is part of the body's innate immune system. When something is wrong, something is off, when the tubes aren't draining, okay, and they're at that horizontal orientation, the tubes aren't draining properly to milk that fluid out of the ears, and it backs up, and that fluid starts to fester. In the nervous system that runs the immune system says, whoa, something's not right here. Okay, we need to up the temperature. We need to cook this stuff to make sure there isn't an infection. There isn't, viruses or bacteria that can, cause problems to the tissue, especially that close to the brain. Now, here's the thing. Moving right along, and I'm going to move my bubble over here, so you guys can see the information. So the other thing as well, gang, is, sometimes we can miss these, and sometimes they present as other things, especially in infants and young children. Most common signs, sometimes this gets overlapped with teething. When a baby is teething and the teeth start coming in the gum line, and that barrier that is broken, the body, again, is smart. You don't want an infection in the mouth. So sometimes redness, and the baby doesn't understand in terms of sensory issues what's going on. So the baby will tug at their ears, and as that barrier is broken, there's increased susceptibility to infection. So the body might cook a low fever, mom. If you, get out the pass thermometer or the thermal thermometer and you check and see, body might run a mild fever. Because again, you've got the mouth, ENT, nose, throat, drainage system, all those areas drain to the same spot. Congestion, right? So we talked about in our Kick the Sick series, which I would highly recommend you go back and take a look at on our page, Facebook, Mother Goose Chiropractic, Kick the Sick. We talked about all the different ways that the immune system works, but congestion is part of that natural innate immunity, right? So when the body is fighting something initially, when it knows there's something that shouldn't be there or something that needs to be gotten out, congestion, mucus, postnasal drip is how the body kind of will clog things up and then try and expel them to get them out of the system. So if kids are congested, right, you wake baby up in the morning, a couple extra coughs, or they're sniffling and their nose is dripping and their eyes are watery, that's a good, healthy, appropriate response. It's when it becomes chronic and for some reason things aren't draining the way they're supposed to. That's when it becomes a problem. So, low-grade fevers, like I said, or baby will pull on their ears. We see that all the time. So we have to kind of triage and say, all right, is this teething? Is this an ear infection? Really, really important things to take a look at and look out for. So again, mom and dad, those are some of the more common signs that a child might have an ear infection. But let's look at the sequence. So how the body deals with things. All right, I'm going to We'll go down to the next slide here. Whoop, I'm going to pull my window over so you can see a little bit better. See the slide completely. Okay, so let's talk about the sequence of ear infections. Very, very important. So teething, congestion, drainage challenges. What happens is the system essentially gets overwhelmed. So fluid gets backed up, it doesn't drain properly, and then it becomes susceptible to infection. So in a child, those tubes should be horizontal, right? Those drainage tubes. And interestingly enough, there's a little muscle in there that will gently milk the tube and kind of push fluid to drain out. It's called the tensor veli palatini. Tensor veli palatini. I'm a quarter Italian. Dr. Carey's half Italian. So when we were in school, I used to try and remember that on the test as it's the Italian muscle, tensor veli palatini. It's a little muscle that milks the ear canal to make sure that it drains properly. So biomechanics in the upper neck and also neurological control to make sure that biomechanically those tubes can drain is really, really important. If there's any stress or tension in the upper neck or the nerve system, that can affect drainage. Absolutely. Also, as we'll get to a little bit later, really pediatric chiropractic is all about neurology. And when the nerves are irritated, that can also affect the function of the immune system. That can suppress that immune response. So the first thing we see, fluid in the ears, fluid backs up, okay? Now, fluid's got to go somewhere, right? So the body, that natural immunity, is going to cause congestion like we mentioned. And the body's going to try and say, okay, we need to get just this, this bacteria, these viruses, these germs, we've got to push it out and get it somewhere else. So those tubes drain to the throat, okay? So you've got the sinuses and then the throat. And that fluid, again, it's like water backing up, right? It's going to have to flow somewhere. Really, really important. When you overwhelm the throat, the glandular tissue, and you get that swelling, that immune response, all that postnasal drip can irritate the tonsils and the adenoids. So there's a sequence to this, guys. If this problem lays dormant and is not addressed, that's why it's normal they'll grow out of it. It's not normal, it's common. They don't grow out of it. It overwhelms the immune system and the health manifestations change. These things don't go away. They show up differently until you address the heart of the problem, which is what we do in Mother Goose Chiropractic. So you've got all that postnasal drip because the ears are backed up. That irritates the tonsils and the throat. And then all of a sudden you've got chronic sinus infections, respiratory stuff, maybe RSV or the croup in a baby, sinus infections, throat, if the throat tissue is overwhelmed and its resistance is lowered, kids that get strep. So again, then you're compounding the problem with the need for more antibiotics because again, if you have an infection, that's important. So enlargement of tonsils and adenoids. And then if your doc might say, okay, we need to send you to an ENT specialist. Yeah, those look really inflamed. They're constantly becoming infected. We should probably take those tonsils and adenoids out. Again, here, I had chronic sinus infections as a child, okay? We're going to get to where all this comes from, why the ear infections, why the sinus infections in my childhood, where does it come from in the kids we take care of, what's really at the heart, what's causing that, that's what we address with pediatric chiropractic. So the whole system can function better. But I had my adenoids taken out. Again, very, very vivid childhood memory. Not a whole lot of fun. We went to a hospital in Salem, Massachusetts, where I'm from. I remember having a horrible sore throat, popsicles, ice cream. Oh, it's not fun. So sore throat, breathing troubles, once you compromise, again, all the soft tissue back there in the throat, that can cause, breathing issues. So we see children sometimes that they breathe heavy, they become mouth breathers, they can't breathe through their nose as well. Or, mom and dad say, okay, they're 7, they're 8, they're snoring. We're getting told we have to go to a sleep specialist for sleep apnea. It's not normal, it's common, and it doesn't go away. The manifestation changes. So imagine we've got this drainage issue, we've got this, gunk and crap that the body is trying to get out. Take out the tonsils and the adenoids. All that postnasal drip, then it drains to where's next on the chain? It drains to the lungs, right? So now when we see kiddos that are 8, 9, and 10 that have bronchitis, chronic congestion, respiratory issues, or even asthma, when I go back and I ask them the health history, I'm like, hey, by the way, how are they as a baby? Any ear infection? Oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah, they had ear infections, they had the croup. So again, a stressed, overwhelmed immune system, the health manifestation changes. And so our goal in Mother Goose Chiropractic, wherever your child is on this continuum, we can absolutely help. I don't want you to, don't feel bad, don't feel guilty. Oh my gosh. The most common thing we hear from parents is after we get their children better, they're like, my God, I wish I'd known about this sooner. And mom, dad, I get it. The good news is this is information that's empowering you so your child can be healthier. And wherever they are in this continuum, whatever manifestation they're having with their immune system, we can help improve the function of that system and address the cause so that they can have a better quality of life. That is what we do at Mother Goose Chiropractic. Now, I'm going to move my window back over here. So you guys can see the slide. Okay, now, when it comes to contributing factors, that's a really important question. We go through, when a new child comes to us in this office, or an adult, we go through a very detailed health history. So let's look at things that can kind of be precipitated factors, contributing factors that cause this kind of stuff or can lead to a stress system. First one that we always ask about is labor and delivery, okay? If you guys have seen any of our content on autism, ADHD, sensory processing, neurodevelopmental challenges, speech and motor, that type of stuff, again, pediatric chiropractic, not a treatment for ear infections, not a treatment for ADHD. But when we take a detailed health history, we uncover some of the things that have happened in the past. It's really, really important to know and understand how that plays into your child's health so you can help change the future and create a better health future for that child. Intense labor and delivery is one of the biggest things that we see when we take a health history for a child that has chronic immune challenges. Here's the reason why. Pediatric chiropractic, our greatest influence is over neurology. Think about it like this. The spine is just a big circuit breaker. It's how the brain and the body communicate. Neurologically, that's a simplification, right? But that's really a great way to illustrate what we do in pediatric chiropractic. So if a mom has a stressed labor and delivery, and they have to do forceps or a cesarean or a cord wrap or epidural Pitocin, and there's one big push, they have to lift, twist, and pull that baby out, and that delicate upper neck is damaged or irritated, those nerves are incredibly sensitive. And guess what? Upper cervical controls gut and immune function, and also mechanically controls those muscles that are supposed to be milking those ear tubes to make sure the tubes in the ears can drain. Okay? So imagine, I'm born, I happen to be a cesarean, by the way. I always tell this story. So this again, not only do I understand the science and how to get these children better, but I live this, guys. This was my childhood. I was a cesarean, ear infections and sinus infections. But if you rewind with an infant, so if the nerves are irritated, if the upper neck isn't turning and twisting the way that it should, that can also lead to trouble with baby latching, or baby only wanting to nurse on one side and going to the other side and can't get a good latch, right? Because there's nerve irritation. That just sort of sets the stage. That neurological irritation sets the stage for these types of issues. Tightness. If baby is spastic or arches their head and kicks back and they don't soothe very well, or they're that type of an issue. Another big factor that plays in with this is sometimes cranial shape, right? During an optimal labor and delivery, the cranial bones sort of overlap, and then when the baby comes out of the vaginal canal, they rebound. But if you have, if your pediatrician has identified that the cranial shape is off, or they've got torticollis and spasm, or they've said, oh, you know what, these cranial bones are off, we might need to, plagiocephaly, that's a concept, or we might have to put a helmet and help affect the cranial shape. Again, these are all issues that pediatric chiropractic can help address naturally to restore healing and proper biomechanics to the cranial, to the drainage, and to the upper cervical spine, that upper neck. But at the end of the day, guys, really, really quickly, I want to rewind to high school biology. You guys have all probably heard of the fight or flight response. So if the spine is not moving properly, if the nerves in a baby, toddler, or child are irritated, we call that the gas pedal. That confuses the brain neurologically, and when the brain perceives stress, it turns on that fight or flight response. So what does that look like in a baby? Gassy, colicky, constipated ear infections, right? Because the brain is so stressed and revved up and overwhelmed and confused, it is not a growth and development mode. So infection, not digesting properly, not pooping when they should. And what are babies supposed to do? Eat, sleep, poop, right? Those are the big three. We had an adorable little guy who transitioned to wellness care last week. When he came in, he wasn't having ear infections, but he was colicky, and constipated. So really, really important that we identify areas of neurological interference so that babies are able to grow, develop, and thrive. Eat, sleep, and poop. Really, really important. But when you irritate the nerves, again, that stress response, the immune system is suppressed and down-regulated, right? So I could take the best amoxicillin and the best elderberry syrup that money can buy, but if my brain is so stressed and revved up that it's suppressing my immune system, brain is the master control system, guys. Until you reset that and calm and connect and heal that system, the brain is going to continue to suppress things. So, all the pills, potions, lotions, detoxes, and cures out there aren't going to make a whit of difference. And if you're on multiple rounds of interventions like that and you're not seeing the results, that could be why. Again, we look first to the nervous system to make sure that the brain and the body are perceiving and coordinating so the body can heal, right? So over time, lowered immunity. And then again, we talked about already, teething. Yeah, that's kind of a yin-yang sometimes with the ear stuff because swelling, inflammation, and irritation in the mouth and the ENT system, they're all very close together and closely related. So we want to keep an eye on all those things. My video window, just so you guys can see everything clearly on the slide here. So to land the plane, obviously, Mother Goose Chiropractic, pediatric chiropractic. Let's talk about what makes us different, okay? There are two huge benefits to making sure your child, their spine and nervous system gets checked if they're struggling with chronic immune challenges and to boost their adaptability and resiliency. And if you have a stressed baby, toddler, or child that's struggling with chronic ear infections or immune challenges, it's absolutely critical that you get their spine and nervous system checked and assessed. Number one, when it comes to ear infections specifically, we talked about the mechanics of the upper cervical spine. If that's stuck, if that's not moving properly, a simple, light, delicate, safe, effective adjustment to restore normal movement and motion, that allows for better drainage. That's biomechanics, right? If you have a kink in a hose, okay, water can't flow, right? If you have impaired biomechanics, that upper cervical spine, that delicate upper neck, and those nerves, those ENT tubes and the muscles there are going to impact and clog and choke off those tubes so the tubes can't drain. So proper alignment allows for proper drainage of fluids from the ear, nose, and throat. Proper drainage so the body can clean and deal with that fluid, right? It goes to the question, why do some kids struggle with ear infections yet others don't, right? The difference is the nervous system. The other thing too, chiropractic can help bolster and boost the immune response. In the times we're living in right now, guys, resiliency, making sure the body is resistant to germs and viruses and bacteria has never been more important for a family. It's never been more important for your child. So there was a study done several years ago where they measured some markers in the blood before and after an adjustment, and the study concluded that chiropractic can boost the immune response by up to 200%. Okay, so I want to clarify that, right? Chiropractic is not a treatment for ear infections. But if the nervous system is stressed and the body is producing stress hormones, that decreases the immune response. And go back to our Kick the Sick series where I talk in detail about how the nervous system and the immune system are like this. They are one super system, the most closely related in the body. So if the brain and nervous system is stressed and irritated and that immune system is not running properly because the brain and the immune system aren't communicating effectively, again, you can try everything, but until you get that right, until you restore a proper connection so the brain can run the immune system effectively, again, you're going to be banging your head against the wall. And we understand the struggles. We understand, again, the late night ER runs and having to take time off work and having to pick them up from daycare and not being able to sleep and just wanting to be able to do something to soothe your child. And, what am I doing wrong? What else is there? Well, you can get your kids checked. You can get your child, get their spine and nervous system checked to make sure there isn't anything irritating or interfering with normal drainage, with normal growth and development of that nerve and immune system. We call it the neuroimmune system because, again, it's the most closely related, because that brain is responsible for booting up the immune system when it needs to and shutting it off when it doesn't. And when you don't boot it up when you're supposed to, you get chronic infections. And when you don't shut it off, you get chronic conditions like allergies, asthma, and those types of things, like we talked about on that continuum. Very, very important. So let me land the plane on detecting neurological stress. So I move the window yet one more time just to make sure you guys can see everything. So let me talk very, very specifically, Mom and Dad, about our mission at Mother Goose Chiropractic and why we are so proud to partner, as you can see, with the National Family Wellness Alliance. So we talked about ear infections. We talked about the latest information. We talked about how the nerve system and the immune system work together, and how if there's improper drainage, it can lead to a whole sequence of events that compromise the health of you or your child. Now, that's a really great theory, right? But how do you know? What do we do in this office that makes us different, so we can measure very specifically and get you very specific answers and the information that you need to explain why your child is struggling? Every child is different. No two children are the same. And so what we do in this office is we use very specific, it's called the Insight system. It's nerve scanning technology. First and foremost, guys, and I always tell little kiddos that have been around the block, sometimes they're apprehensive about coming to a doctor's office because they think they're going to have to take icky meds or really painful shots. Basically, with these scans, it's easy, painless. There's no needles. There's no ionizing radiation. We measure temperature and electrical activity. So, you know, when an HVAC guy has a thermal gun and he points it towards a vent to measure the temperature, wireless, painless, very, very quick, very, very vital information. So we measure temperature and electrical activity, and that tells us where the nervous system is stressed and stuck, where the brain is stuck and not perceiving and not coordinating appropriately. Is it affecting drainage? Is it affecting the ears? Is it affecting the immune response? We can see and quantify it. If you look on this before and after here of a little girl named Lila, I'm going to talk to you about in just a minute. You can see that big line in the upper neck. I'm going to circle it with my cursor here. You guys see that? Okay. Lila, difficult labor and delivery, right? Lifted, twisted, pulled. Irritated the nerves, biomechanically affected the drainage. Okay, so the nerve system's not adapting. It's not running the immune system as effectively as it could be. Poor drainage. ENT issues. She had 6 ear infections in less than a year, 4 rounds of antibiotic, recurring again and again and again. What we did was we identified where her nervous system was stressed and stuck, and we put her on a plan of gentle, specific, effective pediatric adjustments to help that system reset, help the ENT system drain better, help her brain boot up the immune system better. And after just a few short weeks, she was doing great. Very, very important. You can see over here in the before and after, right? Classic. You can see over here in the upper neck how that big colorful line has started to clear, and white is a good reading. White is what we want. So the really cool thing about Lila's case and the ear infection cases we've had here in the office is that we know that we are able to kind of get her off that train where, you know, the decreased likelihood of strep or tonsils or adenoids being removed. You know, her drainage system is going to function effectively. So that postnasal drip isn't going to clog the lungs and cause things like bronchitis and congestion and long-term effects like asthma and allergies, because we were able to address the cause of the problem and flip that switch, so to speak, so that she can switch from, you know, stress to growth mode. Again, ear infections resolved, you know, ENT drainage improved. And again, chiropractic isn't a treatment for ear infections, guys, but it's critical that your child's nerve system is functioning free of stress, interference, and irritation so that when something changes in the environment, the body can adapt. Okay, that is what we do in pediatric chiropractic. We make sure that a child's body can grow and develop and adapt to a changing environment and increase that resilience so they're not sick all the time. Do they get the coughs, colds, and sniffles? Absolutely. But some kiddos never get sick. Some children get sick and it goes away in a day or two. Other children get sick and it turns into a festering infection where they need to stay home from school or daycare, and you've got to take time off work, run to the urgent care, run to the ER, and then go on some sort of, you know, intervention or antibiotics or what have you. And what's the difference? The difference is the internals. And what we do in pediatric chiropractic is strengthen that. We improve the brain and body's ability to adapt because your child was built to be healthy. You are hardwired for health. And so is your child. There's nothing wrong with your child. There's nothing wrong with you as a parent. But if there is something blocking or interfering with that process of their growth and development, until you address that, the struggles will continue. So that being said, we're an essential service here at Mother Goose Chiropractic. We are open, we are rocking and rolling, and seeing more patients than ever before, believe it or not, because people know that chiropractic and the immune system go together. Not a treatment for any virus, bacteria, cold, cough, or flu, but we improve adaptability. We strengthen the internals so that you're more resistant and more resilient. And if we can unlock that health potential for your child and help them be as healthy as possible, you owe it to yourself. So I would highly recommend that if you've been watching this and you said, oh my gosh, this is my kid, give us a call. We'll put the phone number. We call ourselves the Southwest Florida Hope Dealer if you've been struggling with these issues for a while, to come on in. We'll take a health history. We'll examine your child. We'll do a set of scans. And then we don't have to guess. We would know exactly what it would take to restore your child's health and help them to not have to struggle with these kinds of chronic issues, especially a baby that you're supposed to be enjoying those early months and years of life, mom and dad. So we would be honored and happy to help. Once we have the scans, once we have that information, whatever you choose to do with the information is up to you. But we are here to deal a bunch of hope, to show you that there is a better way and get you the answers that you need for your child. I'm going to put the office cell phone in a comment below this video. My wife, Dr. Carrie, and I monitor that thing 24/7. So unless we're putting our baby Ananias down or asleep, you can text us anytime with questions, and we'd be more than happy to help. So if you found this information helpful, guys, please feel free to tag, like, and share. Also, turn notifications on. And the National Family Wellness Alliance, who we are so honored to partner with because we are trying to raise the healthiest kids in Southwest Florida. We do that every day at Mother Goose, but if you know someone who's in another state or another part of the country, we have a national network and we can help. Whoa, battery's about to die. So we can help find them the right individual. We can find them the right office. We made a referral the other week. A grandma said, oh, my granddaughter is struggling with it was a sensory issue. We made a referral to a doc in Kentucky. A couple weeks later, they're doing great. So we would love to help in any way that we can. Again, I'm Dr. Dane Cunningham, Mother Goose Chiropractic. Hope you found the information helpful. God bless. Have a great night. And if your kiddo's struggling, we would be honored to get them checked and get you the answers and the information you need to create a better health future. You guys have a wonderful night. Stay safe.